Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Renu Kataria and with me is Saira Mujtaba, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring to you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Finance Ministry finalizes framework for sovereign green bonds to attract investment in environmentally sustainable and climate-friendly projects. Exercise Malabar 2022 between navies of Quad countries, India, Japan, US, Australia begins. President Xi Jinping asks Chinese military to remain combat ready and enhance its capability to win wars. 6 dead, 5 injured following a 6.3 magnitude earthquake in Nepal. Nirav Modi loses appeal in London High Court against extradition to India. Aruna Miller makes history, becomes first Indian-American Lieutenant Governor of Maryland in the USA. Justice Dhananjay Yashwant Chandrachud takes oath as the new Chief Justice of India. And in cricket, in ICC 2020 World Cup, Pakistan beat New Zealand to reach the finals, India to clash with England in the second semi-final on Thursday. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has approved the final sovereign green bonds framework of India. Green bonds are financial instruments that generate proceeds for investment in environmentally sustainable and climate-suitable projects. This approval will further strengthen India's commitment towards its nationally determined contribution targets adopted under the Paris Agreement. It will help in attracting global and domestic investments in eligible green projects. The proceeds generated from issuance of such bonds will be deployed in public sector projects which help in reducing carbon intensity of the economy. Finance Ministry said the framework comes close on the footsteps of India's commitment under Panch Amrit as elucidated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi at COP26 at Glasgow in November last year. Finance Ministry has constituted a Green Finance Working Committee with representation from relevant ministries and chaired by Chief Economic Advisor, Government of India. The committee will meet at least twice a year to support Ministry of Finance with selection and evaluation of projects. The allocation of the proceeds will be reviewed in a time-bound manner by the GFWC to ensure that the allocation of proceeds is completed within 24 months from the date of issuance. The Malabar Exercise 2022 began on Wednesday. That includes navies of Quad countries, India, Japan, the United States and Australia. This year marks the 30th anniversary of Exercise Malabar, which started in 1992. India is participating with 2 of its frontline indigenously built warships, Shivalik and Kamorta, and country's delegation is led by Rear Admiral Sanjay Bhalla, Flag Officer commanding Eastern Fleet. The delegation comprises of commanding officers and the crew of INS Shivalik and INS Kamorta. The opening ceremony was hosted by the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force on board JS Hyuga at Japan's Yokosuka.
President Xi Jinping has again asked Chinese military to remain combat ready and enhance its capability to fight and win wars as he secured his third term as head of the party and the military. In his first address to the 2 million-strong military, the largest in the world, Xi said the world is undergoing more profound changes unseen in a century and stressed that China's national security is facing increased instability and uncertainty and its military tasks remain arduous. Xi made the remarks in his first inspection trip to the Joint Operations Command Center of the restructured Central Military Commission or CMC on Tuesday, after being reappointed as the General Secretary of the ruling Communist Party of China (CPC) and the CMC chairman, the top boss of the People's Liberation Army or PLA, for an unprecedented third 5-year term at the 20th Party Congress last month. President Xi's remarks came against the backdrop of growing international concern over China's aggressive military maneuvering in the Taiwan Strait and in the South China Sea. China claims nearly all of the disputed South China Sea, though Taiwan, the Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia and Vietnam all claim parts of it. China also has territorial disputes with Japan in the East China Sea. Chinese and Indian armies are also engaged in a prolonged standoff in eastern Ladakh. During his speech at the party congress last month, she also set a goal of winning local wars and told the PLA to improve training and preparation for war in all aspects and improve the ability of the army to fight and win. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on G20 Summit in India. In conversation are former Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar and journalist Nilova Roy Chaudhary.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday unveiled India's logo, theme and website for its presidency of the G20, a grouping of the world's largest economies, which India is set to assume on December 1st. Speaking as he unveiled the logo, Prime Minister Modi said, India's G20 presidency is coming at a time of crisis and chaos in the world. The world is going through the after effects of a disruptive, once-in-a-century pandemic, conflict, and a lot of economic uncertainty, he said. India will assume the presidency of the G20 for 1 year from December the 1st, 2022 to 30th November 2023. Under its presidency, India is expected to host over 200 G20 meetings across the country beginning next month. It will be taking over from Indonesia, which is hosting the G20 Leaders Summit, which the Indian Prime Minister is scheduled to attend on November 15th and 16th in Bali. Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar joins us this evening to walk us through what the significance is of India assuming the chair of the G20, the group of which was begun to counter the global economic crisis of 2008. Good evening, Ambassador Sajjanhar.
Good evening, Nilova.
Unveiling the logo earlier this evening, the Prime Minister said the symbol of the lotus in the G20 logo is a representation of hope in these times. Why is it especially significant for India to be assuming the presidency of the G20 at this point of time? And what message will India give to the world's most advanced economy?
I think the significance of India assuming the presidency of G20 at this juncture is that the whole world is going through very cataclysmic times. I think since the time that the G20 came into existence, first at the level of the finance ministers and the governors of central banks, that was in 1998, and then after that, in the wake of the 2007-2008 international economic crisis, when the level was raised to summit to the heads of state and heads of government, I don't think that the world has seen such turbulence, such turmoil, such uncertainty as it sees today. Because in 2007, there was only an international economic crisis which the world had to deal with. And you would recall that the first meeting was held in Washington, D.C. Then in 2009, we had two meetings, one in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the second in London. And 2010, again, we had two meetings, one in Toronto and the other in Seoul in South Korea. After that, we've been having meetings annually. But the challenges that the world has confronted over all this period, these challenges have basically been financial in nature as to how to deal with this. But today, the sort of situation as it exists is not only financial, not only economic, but also hugely political. First, we had the pandemic in 2020, and the economies of all the 200 countries in the world, they were severely adversely impacted. In addition to that, the health situation, even in developed countries, whether it is the United States or it is European countries or Japan, none of them was spared. All of them were affected. And scarcely the world trying to get out of the impact of the COVID-19 that we have the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And that has now been going on for more than 8 months. Now, it might be a localized conflict in terms of its geographical coverage, Nilova. That's only in Europe, in Russia and Ukraine. But its implications have been truly global. We have seen in terms of the shortages of food, in terms of shortages of fertilizer, in terms of shortages of fuel, the energy shortages. And of course, in addition, we've had these huge supply chain disruptions. And the countries which are getting majorly affected by it are not so much the developed countries, although they are witnessing inflation which is the highest in 40 years in the US and in the United Kingdom. But it is the developing countries of Asia, of Africa and South America which are being forced to bear the brunt of this conflict, while they are in no way responsible for this. So I think the situation at which India assumes the presidency is very significant. And what you mentioned just now, Prime Minister said that irrespective of the circumstances and the surroundings around it, the lotus always continues to bloom. And so our logo, which has the lotus and which encapsulates the customs and traditions and civilizational ethos of India. So we will be able to make this contribution to the world in these times of difficulty.
Ashok, this is going to be the largest, the G20 summit when we hold it next year in September, I believe, is going to be the largest ever such conclave India has ever hosted. Now, besides all of the various meetings across the country that are going to be held in the run-up to that summit, what do you think are the particular areas that India would be specially interested in highlighting and trying to give the message go forward?
A couple of points here, Nilova. You are very right that it will be the highest ever gathering of world leaders in India when the summit takes place in India in September of next year. But I think in addition to the numbers, we also need to be mindful that all the G7 members are going to be in India. All the P5 members are going to be in India. All the BRICS members, there is an overlap between all of these. The point I'm making is that these are going to be very significant players in the international, on the global scene, whether it is in the area of economy or it is in the area of politics for that matter. G20 represents about 80% of the global GDP. It represents 75% of international trade, about 2/3 of the world population, and about 60% of the world's area. So, it's a very significant body in that sense. Now, in terms of the message that India would seek to give, I think what we really need to also keep in mind is two things. Number one, that this is a platform. This is a global forum for discussing and taking decisions on economic cooperation, global financial architecture, etc. It doesn't really deal with the political issues. But because of the situation that prevails in the world today, I think both the summit in Bali next week and also the Indian presidency will have willy-nilly to deal with the political issues that are confronting the world today. The Russia-Ukraine conflict, the contestation between the United States and China-Taiwan stress and tension, activities of the North Korean regime. So I think politics will also enter this arena, although G20 is not supposed to be dealing with this.
I was sort of more looking to try and ask you what the focus areas of India will be in this particular platform or forum. Russia is a member of the G20, as is China, and you raised all of these very pertinent political issues. But more than that, even economically, I mean, the entire oil crisis that the world is going through, the enormously high prices, lots and lots of things. External Affairs Minister is in Russia today. So do you think that Prime Minister will be able to impress upon President Putin, for example, that the war should come to a close now?
I think that will happen in parallel on the side of the G20. I think what the Prime Minister mentioned himself today, and I think this is the theme of G20, and I was coming to that the G20 really has to deal with economic issues and financial matters. And so it will be for the benefit of the world and for everyone if we don't drag these extraneous political issues when we are having these G20 meetings. Because of paucity of time, I'll not go into it, but some way or the other, these issues have been dragged onto the agenda of the Bali meeting. But I'm hopeful that whatever might be the final declaration emanating out of Bali, and that will serve as the platform as to how we take forward our presidency, that we'll be able to focus on the economics. Now, as far as economics and finance is concerned, exactly the issues that we discussed, whether the energy security is concerned, food security, supply chains, sustainable development, climate change, I think these are all issues that the Prime Minister mentioned. He also mentioned that next year the world celebrates the year of the millets. And in India, we have been using these coarse grains throughout for hundreds of years. So this is something, and yoga and Ayurveda are traditional knowledge, how we can share that with the world. And I think in terms of the objectives, what he said, let us not try to view the world as the first world or the third world. Let us try to view the world as one world. And this is the message I think India has been giving consistently over the last so many years now. And even our theme, which emanates from both philosophy and policy, that is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, we look upon the whole world as a family. So the theme that we have identified, one earth, one family, one future, it's very evocative, and it would seek to bring the whole world on one platform so that through diplomacy, through dialogue, we can take care of our differences and then work together for common peace, security and prosperity. That would be the hope and also the idea with which India will take forward its presidency.
That's quite interesting, given the fact that most of the member countries which will be attending all of the G20 meetings, most of them are sort of ranged against Russia in this particular conflict that it initiated against the Ukraine. Now, so India's diplomatic skills will also be enormously tested by this entire effort, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I fully agree with you. India will have to be nimble-footed and will have to be dexterous in its pursuit of the diplomacy, what it follows. But I think if you look at India at the moment, I would suggest for your consideration and the consideration of the listeners is that India finds itself in a sweet spot because India has the support of a large segment of the international community. In terms of its economy, it has just become the fifth largest economy in the world. And many international financial agencies like Morgan Stanley and the others are suggesting that over the next 5 years, India will be the fourth largest economy, and by the beginning of the 2030s, India will be the third largest economy. It is, in any case, the fastest growing major economy in the world. I think the manner in which India has dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic, whether it is in terms of the health impact or the economic impact, and the manner in which it has been able to create and manufacture these vaccines, and while using it for itself, it has also been able to share this with more than 200 million doses with about 100 countries. It has resulted in the image of India and the profile of India and the respect that it has earned in the world. I think that has gone up. So that gives it much greater leverage in terms of providing a leadership to the world when it takes over as the presidency of the G20 from 1st of December.
Thank you so very much, Ambassador Sachin.
Thank you very much.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at TIR News Alerts.
Nepal's Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deuba has condoled the families of those who lost their lives in a 6.3 magnitude earthquake in the wee hours on Wednesday. Expressing heartfelt condolences in a tweet, Mr. Deuba added that he has instructed the relevant agencies to arrange immediate and proper treatment of the injured and the victims in the affected areas. At least 6 persons have been killed and 5 injured in the earthquake that struck Doti district. Close to 10 houses had collapsed in the quake. The injured are currently undergoing treatment at a local health facility. Security personnel from Nepal Police, Nepali Army, local representatives and locals are jointly conducting rescue and relief operations in the affected area. The Embassy of India in Kathmandu has also expressed condolences on the tragic loss of lives in the earthquake. It extended prayers for the bereaved families and wished for speedy recovery for the injured. Many aftershocks had been felt after the 2 bigger quakes throughout the night. Strong tremors from the earthquake were also felt in Delhi. Aftershocks were also recorded in other areas of the Indian subcontinent. The London High Court has given a verdict allowing diamond merchant Nirav Modi's extradition to India, who fled the country after alleged financial fraud to the tune of Rs 11,000 crores against a government bank. Nirav Modi lost the appeal in London High Court on Wednesday as Lord Justice Jeremy Stuart Smith and Justice Robert J. delivered the verdict that allowed the fugitive businessman's extradition to India. They had presided over the appeal hearing earlier this year. With this development, he is closer to being extradited to India. Modi had appealed against being sent back to India for facing trial in the alleged fraud case with Punjab National Bank. There are sets of criminal proceedings against him in India respectively with the probe agencies CBI and ED and is on their wanted list. His undertakings allegedly leveraged the shortfalls in the banking system by seeking letters of undertaking or LOU and then raising credit from foreign banks to pay its merchants.
Indian American Aruna Miller has made history, becoming the first Indian American politician to win the campaign and be elected as the Lieutenant Governor of Maryland. She will also be the first South Asian woman to serve at such an important position. Miller thanked the people of Maryland for their verdict. Ms. Miller, who is a former executive director of Indian American Impact, was endorsed by the organization, which supports Indian American representation at every level of governance. She also had the support and endorsement by important Indian American organizations and people. Justice Dhananjay Yashwant Chandrachud on Wednesday took oath as the new Chief Justice of India. President Draupadi Murmu administered the oath of office to Justice Chandrachud as the 50th Chief Justice of India at Rashtrapati Bhavan. He succeeded Justice U.U. Lalit, who retired on Tuesday. In his first statement to the media after the swearing-in ceremony, Justice Chandrachud said, "Serving ordinary citizens is his priority." He also said he will work for reforms in registry and judicial processes. Prime Minister Modi has congratulated Dr. Justice Chandrachud on being sworn in as the new Chief Justice of India. The Prime Minister wished Justice Chandrachud a fruitful tenure ahead.
The 41st session of the Universal Periodic Review Working Group is being held from 7 to 18th November at the United Nations Human Rights Council UNHRC in Geneva. During the session, United Nations member states will review India's report on human rights on Thursday. The National Report of India was submitted on 5th of August this year, outlining the steps towards the promotion and protection of human rights. Solicitor General of India, Tushar Mehta, will lead the Indian delegation at the UNHRC. External Affairs Ministry said India plays an active role in global promotion and protection of human rights. It said India has strong commitment for the welfare of entire humanity, inspired by the civilizational ethos of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The ministry said India has been engaged constructively with the members of the UNHRC and other fellow UN member states to promote and protect human rights globally. The ministry said Universal Periodic Review is an important mechanism that India fully supports. The ministry added that it has emerged as one of the successful human rights mechanisms due to its universal character, constructive and consultative approach and cooperation amongst member states. President Draupadi Murmu will be on a two-day visit to Odisha from Thursday. This will be her first visit to the state as the President of India. She will offer her prayers to Lord Jagannath at Sri Jagannath Temple, Puri. On Friday, the President will visit Tapoban High School in Bhubaneswar and interact with students and teachers. On the same day, she will launch various projects of the Union Ministry of Education from Jayadev Bhavan, Bhubaneswar.
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has commended the Indian Army for maintaining a high operational readiness towards ensuring security and national sovereignty. Mr. Singh highlighted the stellar role played by the Army in guarding Indian borders and fighting terrorism, apart from providing assistance to civil administration. The minister said this while interacting with the senior leadership of the Indian Army at Army Commanders Conference in New Delhi on Wednesday. He said that the country ought to be prepared for any operational contingencies, and hence the operational readiness should always be at its peak level. He also complimented the forces for the high standard of operational preparedness and capabilities. Mr. Singh lauded the Army's efforts to develop niche technologies in collaboration with private industries, including premier educational institutions, and thereby progressing towards the aim of modernization through indigenization. Home Minister Amit Shah has said that in the last 8 years, Narendra Modi government has taken several important steps to strengthen the internal security of the country. Mr. Shah said this during a day-long interaction with officials of the Intelligence Bureau in New Delhi on Wednesday. He said Intelligence Bureau has made a very important contribution in maintaining peace in the country since independence. During the meeting, Home Minister stressed on the need to further strengthen the process of information sharing and enhancing cooperation between counter-terrorism and anti-drug agencies of the states. He said there is a need to dismantle the financial and logistical support system of left-wing extremism. Mr. Shah added that India has to make maximum use of anti-drone technology to stop smuggling of drugs from across the border.
Chief Election Commissioner of India Rajiv Kumar has appealed to all eligible citizens to participate in the nationwide special summary revision of the voters list starting on Wednesday. He took part in a bicycle rally at Pune city in Maharashtra to spread awareness about voter registration. The Election Commission of India conducts special summary revision to enroll unenrolled eligible citizens during the months of October-November every year. Earlier in the day, Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar and Election Commissioner Anup Chandra Pandey inaugurated a multimedia exhibition and a cultural program organized for young voters on the Savitribai Phule Pune University in Pune. Union Minister Sarbananda Sonowal will inaugurate the two-day PM Gati Shakti Multi-Modal Waterway Summit on Friday. The summit will be held at the Deen Dayal Hastakala Sankul Trade Center and Museum, Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh. The primary object of this summit is to bring about greater awareness about the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan with focus on infrastructure development in the waterways. Speaking about the summit, Mr. Sonowal said that the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan is a transformative approach for improving logistics efficiency and reducing logistics costs to ensure first and last mile connectivity. He said the ministry had identified 101 projects estimated to cost around over 62,000 crore rupees under Gati Shakti, which are aimed to be completed by 2024. PM Gati Shakti was launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which aims at providing multi-modal connectivity infrastructure to various special economic zones and enhancing logistical efficiency.
In the ICC T20 Cricket World Cup, Pakistan entered the finals of the tournament by defeating New Zealand in the semi-finals played at Sydney on Wednesday. Chasing a target of 152 runs, Pakistan scored the total in 19.1 overs at a loss of 3 wickets. For Pakistan, Mohammad Rizwan scored 57 runs, while skipper Babar Azam hit 53 runs. Earlier, after winning the toss, New Zealand elected to bat and set a target of 152 runs for Pakistan. The Kiwis scored 151 runs with the loss of 4 wickets in the stipulated overs. Daryl Mitchell, 53, and Kane Williamson, 46, were the top scorers for New Zealand. For Pakistan, Shaheen Afridi took 2 wickets, while Mohammad Nawaz claimed 1 wicket. India will lock horns with England in Adelaide on Thursday in the second semi-final. The match will start at 1:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. The final will be played on Sunday in Melbourne. And now let's take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. Reuters reports China's factory gate prices for October dropped for the first time since December 2020 and consumer inflation moderated, underlining faltering domestic demand on strict COVID curbs. A property slump and a global recession risk hammered the economy. Bloomberg reports that the European Union proposed on Wednesday a new mechanism to provide 18 billion euros in financial aid to Ukraine in a more predictable manner after the bloc was slow to provide all the support it promised earlier this year.
And now a quick look at the headlines once again. Finance Ministry finalizes framework for sovereign green bonds to attract investment in environmentally sustainable and climate-friendly projects. Exercise Malabar 2022 between navies of Quad countries, India, Japan, US, Australia begins. President Xi Jinping asked Chinese military to remain combat ready and enhance its capability to win wars. 6 dead, 5 injured following a 6.3 magnitude earthquake in Nepal. Nirav Modi loses appeal in London High Court against extradition to India. Aruna Miller makes history, becomes first Indian-American Lieutenant Governor of Maryland in the USA. Justice Dhananjay Yashwant Chandrachud takes oath as the new Chief Justice of India. And in cricket, in ICC 2020 World Cup, Pakistan beat New Zealand to reach the finals, India to clash with England in the second semi-final on Thursday. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Cambodia.
Pida
with that, we end this bulletin. We will be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.